Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com or, of course, follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by costume designer Vera Chow, whose work includes The Walking Dead, Marco Polo, and more recently, The Brother Son for Netflix, just to name a few. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
I guess my first question for you is, how did you get involved with The Brother Son?
How do I get involved with the brother son? Well, I'm trying to think back. Kevin Tancheron, the director, and Byron, the showrunner, reached out to me first. Byron was the creator of the show. There is a pretty tight-knit network of API creatives in the film industry where, it's even smaller than the whole Kevin Bacon 6 degrees of it's so for us, it's usually 1 or 2 degrees, and there's
Yeah.
not too many API costume designers out there right now. So they reached out to me. We had a really great Zoom interview. Without going into specifics, kind of like poo-pooed on a lot of Asian themed shows on their inaccuracies. Maybe that's how I
Mhm.
got the job.
I grew up in a household in the projects in East Harlem. There's a program at WNET, the public television station, to get more people of color behind the camera, in the editing room, doing sound, writing scripts. When they put me in a dark room and they showed me how to use the splicer and the rewinds, I felt this big sigh of relief, this sense of, wow, I found my space. The editing part of filmmaking is the real nuts and bolts, what makes films come to life. You can ask Spielberg, you can ask Tarantino, you can ask Spike. When you sit here, this is where the proof is in the pudding. I'm Sam Pollard, and this is my class on documentary editing.
Well, I guess everything starts with a script. So when you got the script, what were some of the things you pulled out of it to help sort of figure out the looks?
Well, I read the script first, and then what Kevin explained to me was that he wanted a very hyper realistic, almost like a manga, anime, Kill Bill, like larger than life kind of
Mhm.
aesthetic. Because I could look at the script and make you like a Tokyo Vice situation, like very serious, like very dark. Or I can make it as cartoonish and dramatic and humorous, like full of like funny Easter eggs, like the way I did it in Brother Son. So it starts with the tone that we want to set first,
Mhm.
and then it goes from there. And I think I really enjoy being able to kind of go a little bit crazy and out of the box with it because we have made quite a few Yakuza and Triad shows in our time
Mhm.
to be able to know the subject and then expand upon it to a point where it's like testing the limits of what is reality is very fun.
Well, so you touched on poo-pooing some of the other shows. So I'm wondering, like, when you tackled this project, how did you sort of respect the Asian culture and sort of design these things, but not or and defy sort of the stereotypes that are out there?
Right. Well, good. So first of all, I did cheat a little bit because I did grow up in Asia, so I did skip a couple of steps to be able to have some fundamental understanding of it. But secondly, when I did my research, I actually didn't research like anything that is Asian content in Hollywood whatsoever. I went straight into Taiwanese, Hong Kong research, be it old films, be it new films, be it even the news footage. I just went straight to Taiwan for it. It is testing my Chinese skills, and I have to like research all of that in Chinese. But you see so much more that is completely different from, let's just say we don't have the black suit and the 70s shirt. We don't always have the satin bomber, which we love. We do love. It
Mhm.
has its moment in time, but I don't want to tread on that ground.
Well, so when you're building up like a look for a particular character or
Hmm.
style, where do you sort of take the inspiration, I guess, from the culture, and where are you allowed to sort of bend it? Like, are there certain, like if there might be certain sort of cultural norms or history that like you don't want to tread on because it'll upset people. So like, how do you find that line where you can sort of bend it and create a new look?
Um, that goes back to like I think the challenge would be a little bit different if the content isn't something I'm already so familiar with. So, however, I do know as an Asian person myself, I don't mess with the jewelry. Like, every piece of I spent so much money on jade and jewelry on the show, and I did have to explain to the producers the cultural significance of it because whatever type of jade, where you wear it, how you wear it, what is the graphic that's on it, actually says so much about where you're from, your family background. Like it's very, very specific. Like usually we can take a look at someone's necklace or bracelet, and I can tell your socioeconomic status and everything just like that. So that I'm not going to mess with. But then I am assuming there are no triads out there that are assassinating people wearing Chinese opera masks.
Yeah.
So if they have to stay incognito, that was my contribution to the show. I was like, this is where I can put in some of my cultural knowledge, but have a little bit of fun with it, knowing that I will not be offending anyone, because I am going to assume the original founders of Chinese opera have been dead for centuries.
You'll just upset the like purist of
Oh,
operas.
yeah, I bet I did. Honestly, I'm sure there are some, my aunt being one of them, I haven't asked her. She is like a huge Peking opera person.
Yeah.
So I don't know how she feels about it right now.
What's interesting about your answer is one of my questions was, like I think because I'm in Canada and I think about, if I go to Newfoundland, you know, they sound different even though we're speaking the same language, but similarly, like our clothes are different even though we're in the same country. So like that was going to be one of my questions, is like looking at your characters and determining their look based on where they are, even though they might be from the same family or same culture. Like, how did you do that for the characters in this show?
Yeah, that was definitely a really big thing for me because Bruce grew up in, the West Coast, and I'm based in New York City. So even that alone is already a very different demographic. Like what even in LA itself, West Coast, like West Coast, West Side people are like, ugh, I don't go to Silver Lake,
Yeah.
That another has
Yeah.
another subculture. And then China, Taiwan, Hong Kong have their own beef,
Yeah.
about all that. There's so many subcultures to be Asian American. So um I actually took a lot of hint from either their chosen accent for their character or their inherent accent. Like, for example, Justin is supposedly from Taiwan, but he has no Taiwanese accent. He has a very neutral accent. He speaks perfect English, which then leads me to believe that in the story, assuming he went to school overseas, which then will inform his clothing choices, which would, from my knowledge from researching and growing up in certain places and also asking my parents, and then he would be less flashy than say a local Taiwanese boss's son. That's where you see Drowsy Lee and his hair and all that.
Yeah.
There is a subtle difference there. Like Justin, for lack of a better word, is way more refined and subtle in his glam. And Drowsy's like purple suit and hair, it's a way flashier and more like someone that just got here.
Yeah. I do want to talk because it's interesting that you say that, 'cause the character I wanted to ask you about, even though they're not one of the primary part of the family, but is TK and his sort of playful looks.
Yeah.
How did how much fun was it coming up with some of his stuff, but also like what inspired that?
Oh my God, he's so fun. I mean, there are no rules with him, so I just kind of went crazy. I was like thinking of like, Run Lola Run, like Fifth Element, like those kind of psychotic colors. And he is, like I feel like everybody loves TK. He is the one place where, I mean, he's the comedic relief. At the same time, I also don't want him to look like a joke. So I have a specific color scheme for Bruce. He's very like pastel-y, like apparently Pinterest calls it hashtag soft boy aesthetic. That's something I learned recently because I'm not Gen Z.
Yeah.
And then, Justin has his own like more emerald, like refined colors, and then Michelle has her own like almost like silky champagne situation for a long time. So I felt like TK was where I just sort of like he's a light he's a little bit of sunshine in it.
Yeah.
And what was helpful is I also pretty much only went with Korean brands for him, and that did help me. I mean, they're like the Korean brands are fun. So I
Mhm.
went with Sunday School a lot, which is a really big Korean clothing brand on the West Coast. And yeah, I mean their stuff is crazy, so I just went for it.
Now, I want to talk about Charles because he's got that balance
hmm
between China and America. So I'm wondering,
hmm
how did you approach his character?
Um, if I don't know if most people watch it on a cell phone or on a big screen. I know these days a lot of people watch these things on a cell phone. If you watch it on a big screen, hopefully people will notice I actually put in a lot of personalized embroidery on
Hmm.
either collars or lapels or even cuffs and sleeves. Like I I rarely let a character like that go on camera without having messed with the I don't like off the rack, especially for characters that are so wealthy and have so much means. Like why
Yeah.
would you? Um, so I said, I don't even remember what you asked me earlier.
Well, the balance
Charles, approach,
between
East meets West.
China,
Yes,
yeah.
like I did use a lot of fancy brands because he have that aesthetic from the Western culture. So we have like Ted Baker, we have like a lot of high-end brands of that nature. But I did add embroidery on it. I customized it. I changed the trim because like assuming if you see like a Ted Baker store or a Versace or a Prada here, and then you see like a rich Chinese or Japanese or Italian person go in the
Right.
same store, they pick entirely different things in there
Mhm.
and they come up with an entirely different item. And I don't know how, like, these are very subtle differences that I guess I just have to stalk people to find out. And I
Mhm.
did stalk people a lot.
Well, and so I have to ask about how much fun was it to do Eileen's look, given that, you know, we're coming off of oh, what was the film she won the Oscar for?
Everything everywhere.
Everything Everywhere All at Once, and she's got such an iconic history. So how did you come up with her character's look?
Her characters look. Well, first of all, I was so scared at the beginning. Of course, I was like, oh my God, she's gonna know so much. She's gonna know that I'm just a baby. I don't know anything. Blah, blah, blah. No, she's amazing. She's so funny. She's so great. And so one thing is I love Shirley Kurata. I love her work on Everything Everywhere, but we're talking about a different person here. So I don't want her to look like she's putting on a costume to look like a Chinatown mom. Like she has a decent job as a nurse, and there is still a level of refinement in her because you can't really unrefine Michelle, even if you put her in a paper sack. So I was avoiding the whole Chinatown mom ensemble cardigan, drawstring pants, like Alfred Dunner situation. So we have been mixing very, very cheap things with like a Chloe blouse or something. But the key is to make it a slow evolution. So if I have the whole cardigan, Alfred Dunner pants, and then these custom made white suits, like I wasn't trying to do like a makeover montage like that. Hers is very gradual because it's already happening by episode one. And she takes on more and more responsibility. And she didn't decide to be a dragon head like one day. I'm like, I'm a mom. No, I'm a dragon head. So I didn't go too extreme on the Chinatown end. She already, let's just say, if the elegance power female scale of 1 to 10, she was already starting at a 5. And then we start making it like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 to culminate into her white suits, red suits, lilac suits, like that.
Okay.
And it's customized towards the end to her physique, to her body. Like it went from
Hmm.
soft silhouettes to like very power woman silhouette.
How many, because you've mentioned it before that like you were doing, you know, you would pull from certain designers, but then you also did custom. So how much of your work was custom versus choosing something from a designer pre-made?
I would say pre-made is 1/3 because I mean I would love if it's all pre-made, but let's just say Netflix was not happy with how much money I spent. Like I'm just gonna leave it at that because I want everything to be custom. Like all their suits are custom. Like I've gotten so many DMs on like where to get the suits. And I kind of want to be like nowhere. You can't get them anywhere. A lot of TK's clothes, if it's not from Sunday school, is also custom made. So I don't know. I feel like I have this thing when I shop is that I don't, God bless my tailors and my seamstresses. I just look for fun textures, fun prints. I don't care what size they are. I just go, oh, cool, like cool colors, cool fabric, cool weave.
Mhm.
And then I just get it. And then I just stare at it until, like, at some point, some part of the story will call for it. I've put so many men in women's clothes and women in men's clothes or children's, like, or bed sheets, and I've cut them into other things just because I don't want to be limited because a store doesn't have something. So I think their one of Big Sun's suit is a bed sheet.
Wow.
Or a pillowcase or something.
Well, okay, so I was researching for this and I found an interview with you where you refer to yourself as sort of like a psychologist for clothing pieces for your characters. So I was wondering if you could elaborate on that.
I do think a lot of costume designers would agree with me on that. I feel like we're like a psychologist, therapist, shrink, however you look at it, both for the character and for the actors. And honestly, at some point, those things are kind of blended because you also don't know where the actor is coming from when they read the script. I feel like not every costume designer talked to the actors before they start a show with them. I have to. I cannot see them at a fitting and be like, surprise, this is not what you're thinking about at all. Like ultimately, they are the ones that have to put their whole mind into it, method or not. Once they're in it, they're in it. Like, I mean, method just means you take it home with you. Like every actor, even if they're not method, they are becoming a different person on camera. So I always like to talk about it with them, and be it an amateur actor or an Oscar-winning actor, I have always learned something from how they read it. I've always been surprised that we would read something so differently, and also guaranteed it's also differently from how the writer thought about it and how the director thought about it. And there's no right answer to any of it. I don't believe that there is such a thing as a right answer. I mean, sometimes there's some that are really wrong and weird, but the ideal is to talk to everybody and find a middle ground, because then it will lead into, if someone, because hypothetically if someone goes from a hero to a villain, is it from a pathetic, like sympathetic place, or is it from a vindictive place? Like the script doesn't always say that. That's up to costume director, writer, and the actor to come up together. So in that way, we're all in like I don't know if I can say this, like it's almost like we're all on a mushroom trip together, and we're all like therapeuticizing everybody to come to a eureka of, I don't even do drugs, so I don't know what that means, but that's what I would assume that's the gist.
So now you've mentioned this before, but I'm wondering, or you mentioned this just now, the the actors coming in and sort of talking to them. So how did they, like, what was your thought about what you were going to do, and then how did the actors change it if you were chatting with them beforehand?
For example, with Michelle, like I've learned not to consider a misfire. Sometimes I would say that, like if someone thinks of something and I talk to them as completely different, I'll be like, I misfired. No, there's no wrong answer, I think. So I had Michelle closer to the everything everywhere all at once look at first, because I thought it was going to be from the script is some makeover, like Dragon Queen and SGB grandma or whatever. But it was through a conversation with her that she's like, I don't know, like, is it even in her nature to go that different? Like, would she look like she's someone wearing a costume then if she's a dragon head or dragon, like a dragon head and wearing like $2 cardigans? And it got me thinking, the whole costumey part of it, which can also be something. Maybe we do want Eileen to look like she's wearing a costume of an SGV mom, or we've decided we don't want her to look like that. That could change everything and how it was shot and how Michelle and I approach her clothing. So talking to her, realizing she doesn't want the makeover, is how we came up with that character together.
Is there a particular piece that's your favorite that you got to design?
For everyone, or just
for this
Michelle?
for this, oh, I would say for the show, for everyone.
Oh, the suits, the emerald green, blue suits. I'm sad that so much of it happened in such dark lighting, because I was like, guys, you need to look at it. Like, because it was scripted that they mix up the suits, but it wasn't scripted on how. Because the original script actually mentioned they would cast Charles and Bruce in entirely different physique, different height, different weight, different body structure. So it would be, there was a line in there where someone says, bro, why did you lose a lot of weight, or did you gain a lot of weight, or something like that, for the viewers to be like, what's going on with the suit? And even then you might not know they swapped the suits. So it was my idea to, aside from customizing the suits, because I want the Jade Dragon dark green, and no one else was allowed to wear those colors in the entire thing. And the lining I designed is actually it's like opposite to each other. And they have their name embroidered in Chinese into it. Hopefully for viewers that are very eagle-eyed, someone was smart enough to put the English embroidery on it. That was not me. I think that was my assistant. They're like, no one knows what they're reading. I was like, good point. So if you really look back at it, the viewer should be able to track that he picked the wrong jacket actually the second it happened. Yeah. That was my favorite piece, because I felt like I kind of solved the problem.
I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
I'll tell you right now what I'm binging. I'm binging Resident Alien with Alan Tudyk. Oh, yeah. Because I like when I'm turning my brain off. Brain on is different. Brain off, I like to look at shows that are not like, do I have to study the costumes? Do I have to study the mise en scène? Like whatever, that kind of thing. Yeah. I like to be like, this is just fun. And I'll be like, wow, those are some great prosthetics. I wonder when is VFX and when is prosthetics. I still thought about all of that. I wonder if it's blue screen. I must be green because he's blue. Like, I still can't turn it off, so I might just but this is the thing I've been just on my TV for the last 2 weeks.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
Thank you. This was fun.
Yeah, and that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching.